All right, I'm just going to wing it and see where we go from
Cool.
here. All right, well, welcome to the 2-7 podcast. My name is Shaun and Wesley, joined here by
Wesley Venable.
co-host Wesley Venable. Huge shout out to Wesley for gathering all the equipment that we have here today. I'm just realizing that we got a card table for this, and it's not even showing on our video. Hopefully, in the future, we will have that part resolved.
Cut to the table now.
Yeah, so again, welcome to the 2-7 podcast. If you're wondering, what is the 2-7 podcast? The 2-7 podcast is basically themed around the concept of poker, in that a 2-7 offsuit, meaning the 2 and the 7 you receive are offsuit, is statistically the worst hand you can start with. You cannot build a straight with a 2-7 because you need 5 cards, and you would have a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 7 would be useless. On the other hand, a 7, 6, 5, 4, 3 would be your straight, but the 2 would be useless. So it's not that you can't win if you're dealt a 2-7 hand. You just have less to work with, and you should probably fold immediately. That's in poker, though. Oftentimes in life, we're dealt a 2-7. For some people, their entire life was just being dealt a 2-7. For other people, it's just a season. And through this podcast, we'll be kind of bringing on people that went through a rough upbringing, child abuse, just toxic environments growing up, or even just the neighborhood or the schools that they were brought into were not the best. And a lot of this podcast will be part of addressing those issues. One of the main goals is to have other people, who listen to this, who may have gone through something hard, hear someone they've never met, maybe never meet in their life, and hear them say that they went through the same thing. And that's the first step. The second step would be recovery, healing, finding success, and how did you dig yourself out of that hole? What age were you able to do certain things? And I imagine with most of our guests, one of the common themes will be community. For instance, with church or the, military or any sort of, hobby, it brings you around other people who enjoy the same part of life. And I think community is going to be one of the biggest factors that we talk about bringing people out. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting just to see what comes about with this podcast, because I think a lot of it will be beliefs and philosophies that held people back, or maybe not. Like maybe they grew up seeing other people fall into different belief systems that held them back, but they chose not to.
Right, exactly, yeah. And, as a disclaimer, this isn't a, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, concept. I understand the physical impossibility of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, while also recognizing there is a good sentiment to it. Sometimes you need to just kind of tough things out. I think more often than not, where people, come out of a hard environment, it's because someone was in their life and willing to reach out their hand to help them up. But with that said, though, like, you can't succeed in life if you don't put a pair of boots on.
Right.
You're going to have to walk through some hard stuff, and there's going to be mud, there's going to be sharp objects, and, like, you need to have a pair of boots on. So, again, where I don't think it's like you need to pull yourself up by your boots. At some point, you need to wear boots,
Yeah.
And that's just part of life. And it's, what do you do in life to equip yourself with a good set of boots, a jacket, everything you need to succeed.
And it's not like the Disney message of believe in yourself and any of your dreams are possible and you can do whatever you want. Because we all know that it's not real.
Yeah.
Or maybe if it's more appropriate to say you can do anything you want within reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we both, Shaun and I, have brothers that are handicapped.
Yeah. Same
There's
condition.
physical limitations there.
Yeah.
So we know that they couldn't do certain things even if they wanted to. And I'm sure, I don't know your brother, but my brother very much wanted to.
Remind me, because both of our brothers have CP, cerebral palsy. Is your brother able to walk?
Oh, only with the assistance of a walker.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, see that's like, yeah, that's where I guess my brother is, like, he's in a wheelchair. And I don't think even like if there was a surgery that he could do to like be in a walker, like I think his legs just aren't there right now. So
yeah, I actually, my mom just sent me, I don't know why, but she sent me all of her old VHS like home videos. Sent it to me out of all. I've got 4 brothers, and sent it to me for some reason. So Emily and my wife and I were just going through them, and it was really hard to watch because on one of the videos was my older brother going through physical therapy when he was about 4. And the physical therapists are setting him on the ground and telling him to pick himself up and sit on the bench. Yeah. Like, you can do it, Matthew, you can do it. And he's like a little 4-year-old boy going, I can't do it. And it was just really hard to watch my brother go through that.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm the youngest of 5. And so my brother who has CP, he is the middle child in the family. And so I obviously wasn't around. But, you know, the story that I was told growing up, which knowing my mom sounds pretty accurate, was that there was a point where she wouldn't feed him unless he asked for food. You know, she would, like, at the age of 5, you know, when kids should be talking, she wouldn't feed him unless he asked for food. And it was starting to work, but around that time, you know, the state got involved, DSS, DSHS, they would have here in Washington. You know, they got involved and like, that's not okay. And so I think she got to a point where it was like, she wouldn't give him seconds unless he asked for it, or she wouldn't give him dessert, you know. But like, we grew up poor, so it's not like dessert was really on the table anyway. But you know, like, as far as that brother goes, like, you know, he and I aren't like on good terms right now, and I think that's just kind of a season. But I mean, you know, talk about someone who's limited. He has, I think, a master's in political science, or at least a bachelor's, you know. So, like, you know, there's someone who could, you know, just kind of, you know, put his nose to the grindstone as much as he could to do it. But yeah, let's talk about like family upbringings, you know, because like we said, we have in common, we both have a brother with special needs, but that's not all we have in common. No, we have we have a lot in common. We were both raised in the South, right next to each other. You're from Tennessee. Nashville area, Murfreesboro.
Yeah, just south of Nashville.
Yeah, just south of Nashville, and I'm, you know, from the coast of Carolina, Jacksonville, Onslow County, that area, and we both found ourselves out here in the Seattle Tacoma area.
Yeah, kind of estranged, away from family.
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, like sometimes like wonder, like, dude, are you really my brother? Like,
it feels like that a little bit, because even little things, like, you'll be like, you like Cheerwine? I'm like, I haven't heard of that since I got here.
Yeah, like, they didn't have Cheerwine for the longest time out here, and then, and this isn't a sponsor to Cheerwine, except
unless you want to be.
Love Cheerwine. Yeah. What else? What else do we have in common?
Now that we're talking about it, I'm kind of blanking a little bit.
We both like Nintendo a lot.
Yeah. You more than me. You've got tattoos.
I do have tattoos. I have lots of tattoos. I have a Samus. Oh, the mic stands in the way. I have a Samus Metroid logo. I'm a Samus main in Smash Bros. For any of you who know the terminology. And who are you maining these days? I mean, last time we played was Link.
Yeah, I mean, in the new one, I play Link a lot. Just
you're totally like the Smash Bros. Player that people like to play with, where like you kind of change it up. I will play Samus straight for like 3 hours.
See,
and I will spam charge shots.
The most fun I have is when playing Link or Mario, and this is a tangent. I like Link or Mario, but I'm very good at Smash Brothers, so I have to play characters I'm not good at, or it's not fun for me, because like if there's 4 people, all the other 3 people will be going after me because I'm winning every match. Yeah, so I have to kind of handicap myself.
Something else, not a brag. You know, you've recently started getting into jiu-jitsu. Yeah, how are you liking that?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, are you seeing? Are you at the point now where you're seeing the real world implications of what happens on the mat to how you have to deal with things in life?
Yes, you're not talking about in physical altercations, but you're talking about life lessons.
No,
like
I'm
perseverance.
Just perseverance.
Or I feel like most things that have kind of a path that you go down in jujitsu, or let's say learning an instrument.
Yeah.
That, or even like I used to be a whitewater raft guide.
Okay.
So
I did not know that.
And I did that in North Carolina too.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Asheville.
Oh yeah, over in the mountains. Yeah.
I told you a little bit about it.
Dude, I don't know it, but awesome. Yeah.
Look forward to that, listener.
Yeah. Whitewater rafting with Wesley Venable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was I talking about?
You're talking about
Jiu-jitsu. Anything that has a path.
Yeah.
You'll learn specifics in that industry or workforce or skill that you will learn will apply to most things in life.
So for me, I'm not a big jiu-jitsu guy. I'll roll around and I kind of understand how to, like, I don't think I've ever really tapped anybody out, except when I like physically hurt them, like where something snapped or I hit their head on the mat or something like that. But I'm not really good at like chokes and submissions.
Mm-hmm.
I come from like a decade and a half on the wrestling mats, and now I coach. And but I think the overlap between jiu-jitsu and wrestling is very relevant.
Yeah.
And for me, what I think about is like life lessons. From off the mat onto like on the mat off to the mat is like the grit that it takes, and like the relentless desire to tap. You'll like slap hands with somebody and get the jitters, and there's that fight or flight moment, and like, well, I'm here to fight, until you have someone's like knee just, jamming into your guts for like a half hour straight. And like, that's just life, man. Sometimes you just have a, crappy job, and the desire to tap is just there, but here's the problem. Like, if it's this retail job and you quit, like when you still have to pay the bills and you're going to go take some other, crappy job. And it's like with wrestling, jiu-jitsu, it's like, there's another, you can slap hands, with someone else and you roll around with them, but it's going to be the same issue, so you just have to face that.
And I've only been doing jiu-jitsu for 4 or 5 months, I think.
5 months. Yeah. But that's, there's a lot of people who like try it like twice and like, it's not for me.
And I've taken a little bit of break during Christmas. There was about a 2-week break. I didn't go.
Yeah.
Just cause family was in town and we were hanging out a lot.
One of my favorite podcasts these days is called Endless Endeavors with Greg Anderson. And he's a big jiu-jitsu guy. And one of the things he often says is like, I've yet to meet the person who has tried jiu-jitsu, and I would assume he's meaning for like longer than a month, and like who's tried jiu-jitsu and like talks about how they regret the experience. Like, I wish I hadn't done that. Yeah. He's like, that person doesn't exist, and it's like, yeah. Like, so I think you're at the point now where like, you're kind of addicted.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to stop.
No. I haven't even gotten to spar yet.
Really?
Yeah. The guy, can't say too much.
Right.
Well, I guess I can now.
Just keep it anonymous for now.
It's anonymous because of COVID lockdowns and stuff. But the black belt who runs the gym during all the COVID stuff, because they have weird hours now. There are people who are new. They're not letting spar until he deems them ready.
Gotcha.
And one person that was starting the same time I did just became ready.
Oh, okay.
According to the black belt, so he started sparring this last week, and I haven't gotten to yet.
I guess I've never really faced that, because like people see like the little bit of cauliflower ear on my right ear and be like, you're fine, you'll be ready. And like, kind of know what you're doing.
I feel ready.
Yeah,
but
I think you'd probably be ready.
I mean, the biggest hurdle, it seemed, was just starting.
Yeah.
So like when I got into jiu-jitsu, because I heard a lot of people talk about it kind of in a row in a short amount of time.
Yeah. That's a sign.
Yeah. Well, the thing that got me to do it was I heard Jocko on the Jocko podcast.
Yeah.
Talking about why he loves it. And talked about all the things you learn about. He's like, that's just life.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely subscribe to that mentality.
Yeah. So the biggest first hurdle I went over, the first and the biggest, I think, was just looking at somebody and be like, we're not here to talk.
Yeah.
You got to take me down. I got to take you down. So even if it was just drilling, it was like, okay, we're sitting down and you're getting on top of me. Like, just because I didn't grow up with wrestling other than, play and stuff.
Backyard wrestling.
Yeah. This was like, okay.
Yeah. Like
getting in a room and I'm going to physically attack this guy.
Yeah.
It's feeling kind of awkward. And
You know what's crazy coming from a wrestling background is when I get on like a jiu-jitsu mat with guys and they find out I'm a wrestler, they get just as nervous as I am to roll around with like a jiu-jitsu person.
There is oh my God, what's his name? There's a guy at my jiu-jitsu gym who is like a long-time wrestler.
Yeah.
He just started jiu-jitsu like, I don't know, 6 months to a year ago. He's still a white belt.
Yeah.
And he's probably top 15 outside of the black belts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because it's like, there's overlap.
Yeah.
But
he does a lot of unorthodox moves during sparring.
Right.
He'll just scramble and try to get around people.
And that's what jiu-jitsu mains like really have a hard time with is like they'll say like I swear wrestlers just have springs on their backs.
I've seen him do flips.
Right. Yeah.
Wall grab. He's holding on to somebody like this, and he does like an actual flip around them.
Yep. Yeah. That's just part of the wrestling like movements, and so you like a lot of things are just easy, but it's funny though because you like when you go to jiu-jitsu and you're gonna spar with somebody, the idea is you're gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
But these jiu-jitsu guys, they'll hear, "Oh, you're a wrestler? I don't want to get hurt." Right? It's like, wait, what? And for me, it's like I don't want to get choked out, but that's like why I'm here.
Yeah, chokes aren't that bad, except when you're drilling over and over, and you're choking them, they choke you, you're choking them over and over. You go home a little bit sore.
Yeah, a little bit sore. Yeah. So if you get nothing else from this podcast, you should try jiu-jitsu.
You should try jiu-jitsu.
You will, man or woman. I would just say like you don't realize how fight or flight your just neurological chemistry is until you've got a 300-pound man on top of you who knows what he's doing.
And like we're talking about with all the different life lessons, like you'll learn boundaries. You'll learn one of the first things that we got taught was almost like philosophy of jiu-jitsu, like controlling space.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean and that's the big thing. And like a lot of jiu-jitsu gyms like teach like self-defense. And it's not so much about like, hey, can I go out of my way to choke this person out? Sometimes it's just, can I get them off me, like land a couple hits and run,
Yeah, well, what I liked, one of the reasons that got me into jiu-jitsu was the self-defense, all the civil unrest and stuff.
Sure.
Not to get into that right now, but I saw someone get assaulted in front of me, and I was like, okay, well, I need to get a gun, and I'm going to do jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. Those two things should be enough self-preservation for what's going on right now, I hope.
Yeah.
But with jiu-jitsu, you can apprehend somebody and keep them from hurting you and keep you from hurting them.
Yeah, long enough for like someone to call the police.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So controlling space, if you don't fight, that's a fight won in the mind of somebody who's just trying to defend themselves, especially from a jiu-jitsu perspective. So you just keep them away. Or if they're coming at you, you grab them and you can take them to the ground and you just put your weight on top of them till they tire themselves out. So you don't actually have to, you don't give them a black eye. They don't sue you or tell the cops a different story.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, jiu-jitsu, try it. Yeah. A lot of gyms will let you try it for free, 2 or 3 classes, and they'll give you a gi, which is what you wear in jiu-jitsu. So yeah. So anyway, back to family upbringings and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just a little about myself, and then I'll Wesley can talk about some of your stuff. So I grew up, the youngest of 5. My parents had already, gotten together, split up multiple times by the time I was born, and I was kind of born into the chaos. My older 2 siblings can tell me about how when they were in their young adolescence, where life was good. But by the time I came around, a decade and a half later or so, and my dad was, alcoholic, gambling addiction, walking out on my mom stressing out, trying to work 2 or 3 jobs, she's working at 2 different Waffle Houses. For those of you who aren't Southern, I don't know. What would you say about Waffle House? It's pretty good.
Don't go.
Don't go. Oh, yeah. I think it's the Pacific Northwest, same stigma of Denny's then.
I've never been to Denny's.
Yeah. It's a bad place when it's still open at 2 a.m.
That's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
If it's open at 2 a.m., just go to the grocery store and make yourself a sandwich.
Yeah. Or like, just go home. Go hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to sleep.
Yeah. If it's open at 2 a.m., go hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but yeah, my mom would be like, waitressing at like a Waffle House, in the morning, and then like have like time to come home for a 2-hour nap and then go to a different Waffle House on the other side of town or the other side of county. I don't know if it was Waffle House, but like that was the kind of thing. And she's stressing out and she didn't have the time to be a mom. And, I think my fondest memories of my mom was her smoking a cigarette, like
Just chill.
Yeah.
Just
She's like finally relaxing.
Mm.
And it's like, I knew like by the time I had like any cognitive memory that like that was not the time to bother her with the fact that my Legos couldn't come apart. But my mom was like all about that tough love. But for me, unfortunately, things got so crazy that I was actually taken away from my mom by the state of South Carolina when I was like 4. And my sister and I, she's 2 years older, she was like 6. We were placed in foster care. And we were at a place called Helping Hands. And then we got put into a foster care home. And I remember it was like, I don't know, some couple, they had a daughter. We were there for a little while until the state of South Carolina deemed my grandmother, my mom's mother, fit enough to
be a guardian.
Yeah, to be a guardian. So, it like in the course of a year, I left my mom's house, foster care, foster home, and then to my grandmother's house. And, for some people listening, I was like, oh, that's awesome. There was a family member that was able to take you in. And I would agree. And I'm not complaining about the fact that, like, I now had a home with a family member. However, my grandmother was very depressed. Her kids didn't visit her often enough. She was a widow. And she was just lonely. And that turned to alcoholism via wine, which I hate wine just because of the smell and the memories it brings,
Makes sense.
But my grandmother would get really abusive. She'd get physically abusive with my sister. I remember this one time my sister had like lots of ear piercings and she had hoops in them. I came home one night and my grandmother had her finger through all the hoops and was pulling. And the first thing I saw when I walked in is that she slapped her, and I was like, 0 to 60 real quick. Temper, that's my sister,
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah. And so my grandmother, she wasn't as physical with me, but like she knew how to push the buttons, so she would dog on me like my report card or something, which I'll admit to some people could argue, hey, she's looking out for you, making sure you get good grades. Okay, fine. But there's a point, there's a limit where you should stop being, so tumultuous about it, and, I would get upset. And what do your guidance counselors tell you when you get upset? There's like walk away. This is typical anger management.
Scream into a pillow.
Yeah, scream into a pillow. Yeah. I think it's like, find a happy place or something like that. They say it better in like anger management.
What's way better is smashing stuff.
Yeah, dude.
Right?
As a guy, like, yeah, dude. When I get angry, I just like I don't want to hurt anybody. I just want to like throw something,
And even maybe even more than smashing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff I did growing up was like kind of soft Russian roulette.
Okay.
Like me and a friend would stand about, as far as we are, about 5 feet away from each other. We'd each hold a soda can in each hand, throw them up in the air, and stare at each other.
Oh, what the heck?
Yeah.
Dude, that's how you got out of like being frustrated?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to interact with some danger.
Dude, I'm down with that.
I mean, that's why you
I remember one time
ride your bike without a helmet, right?
Yeah, dude, exactly. Well, I just didn't like what it did to my hair.
Oh, I like what it did to my hair. I like what it did to your hair.
I like what it did to my No, like, so I would, my guidance counselor would tell me, like, hey, your grandmother's yelling at you, you're getting angry, you feel it in your face, walk away. Yeah. Just, get away from the situation, calm down, come back to it. And honestly, that's really healthy advice. Except when I would do that, my grandmother would say things like, oh, yeah, just walk away, just like your father. And if that doesn't, like, flip the switch of a 14, 15, 16-year-old boy, nothing else will. And I would just rage, like, as if I wasn't pissed off enough. That was the thing that was going to set me over the edge.
It's also, you got to think about when you're giving advice to a teenager.
Yeah.
As an adult.
Yeah.
Your emotions are a way different level than a teenager.
You're more control of them. And as an adult, you have options,
And it's like, that is good advice to, control your emotions.
Yeah.
But it's going to be way harder for a teenager to do.
So, ultimately, things got so bad one night that, sheriffs came out, and, I was so upset. And the sheriff that came out, like, was basically like, you gotta find a different place to live, because you will end up in juvie or, locked up at some point if you continue to live here, and this is how you respond. And, I didn't really have anywhere to go. My parents, were out of the picture. But I did have an older sister, and, that was back in the days of MySpace. And for any Gen Z people, it's like, if you think that Facebook isn't cool right now, you would, like, not even touch MySpace with a 12-foot pole.
Let's not even talk about friends.
Let's not even talk about it. Anyway, I found my brother on MySpace and was able to reach out to him and see if he had contact info for my oldest sister. And, I called her. It was a very goofy conversation at the beginning, and then finally I kind of opened up and said, hey, this is what's going on. And I think I, like, vented for like 10, 15 minutes. I remember distinctly my sister's doing dishes over the phone. She's doing dishes, I can hear it over the phone. And, at a certain point I realized I was just venting, and I kind of got it out. And I don't understand why, but I was a little too scared to ask if I could come move out there. Maybe I was scared of change. Maybe I was scared of rejection.
Where was she living at the time?
Here in Washington.
Okay.
Yeah. And she, her and her husband had been stationed out here. And so after like 10, 15 minutes of venting, I said, well, hey, I'm just going to let you go. It was really good to talk to you and hear from you. And she said, okay, yeah, cool. But before you go, by the way, my husband and I, we just bought 2 plane tickets for, you and, our sister to come out and fly out here and live with us. And not sure how we're going to, do it, legality and stuff, but we'll find a way to make it work. And honestly, like, I just, like, clicked the phone, like, ended the call and threw it, because I was like, that's not real. I called back like 5 minutes later, and she's like, hey, you hung up on me. And I was like, are you serious? And she's like, I don't really remember how she responded, but yeah, like, it was going to be like a week and a couple days later that we're going to fly out there. But then the next day, like, she was able to get a better flight, and it was like, no, actually tomorrow. Yeah. And so, yeah. And, man, like, so when I talked about, like, the person that kind of reaches out and pulls you up, that was my sister. And hopefully, if I'm lucky, she'll be on this podcast in the future, because she lived through the dysfunction of my parents, where I ended up living through the dysfunction of my grandmother. So that's, and from there, it's history, it's good history, hiccups along the way. There are a lot of things I still had to deal with, and I'm still dealing with now. I think that's one thing I'll always admit is, like, I don't think we, like, go to the grave having everything figured out. And
no, we're never finished products.
Right. But I think there's, like, a world of, healing and recovery that, we can make in our adulthood and stuff. So anyway, I thought we're at 30 minutes now, so I'd take a couple minutes, talk about your upbringing.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get into more of the details as the episodes go along.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I am the 3rd son of 4 sons.
Okay, yeah, all boys, no sisters.
Nope, no sisters. I think I was an accident.
Okay.
Because it's 2 older brothers, about a year apart from each other.
They had the 4th one, just to make you not feel like that.
Yeah, it's 2 older brothers, a year apart. 7 years later, me. 3 years later, my little brother.
Mm-hmm.
So parents, mom, Mom, if you're listening, I think you're from Ohio. My parents didn't talk about upbringing a lot. My dad's from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Okay.
They met somehow.
Yeah.
I'm sure I might remember. I've heard it at least once or twice. Like I said, parents didn't talk a lot about family or our history, like as a family growing up. But they moved together to Tennessee, had their first 2 sons, built a house, and then I came along. And I think things were good. We were middle class.
Sure.
Probably we made money, but looking back, a lot of that stuff has kind of my perspective growing up, and then my perspective as I'm older, looking back and hearing things I didn't know about that were happening growing up. So there was dysfunctions that weren't like immediately present from a child's perspective.
Sure.
Like my dad took control of the family in certain ways. Like my mom didn't know how much money she made at her job.
Oh, wow.
She would just, she'd go to work as a nurse, speech pathologist, helping people regain their speech if they've gotten in a motorcycle accident or something like that. And
do you think that's like, I think a lot of people listening, that's gonna be like a really foreign concept, like
not knowing how much money you make.
Yeah, but like, and this isn't like excusing it by any means or like justifying it, but I think about like, in the South, in like the 90s.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So from what I've heard, this is kind of how I would picture it happening. Like he told her, I'm the man of the house. Don't worry about finances. I'll take care of it. I've got a job. You've got a job. I don't know if there was a conversation about it. I don't know if it was just what was happening, but she didn't look at her pay stubs. It just went into the account. I don't think she even had access to the bank accounts. He would just give her money, go shopping and stuff. And that raises some questions looking back because
when you were a kid, you didn't really think about it.
Well, now it looks like this is where I'm kind of going disjointed a little bit. My parents got divorced when I was about 14, but there was problems before. And now there's like perspective growing up, perspective hearing stuff about growing up, parents bickering and hearing perspective of both sides. So my mom talking about like my dad made a lot of money, like $1 million.
Okay.
I don't know if it was net or gross in the course of like 5 or 6 years, but it was like we lived middle lower class. So where did that money go? Like we went to. Have you ever heard of Aldi's?
No.
It's kind of like low quality grocery store.
Okay.
Got all the off brands and really cheap stuff.
So like mom and pop Walmart?
Yeah, it's smaller, but it was actually right across the street from the Walmart.
Oh, okay.
So oldest brother in a wheelchair. I'm going to go back. Oldest brother in a wheelchair. Then next brother, me. Growing up, I did a lot of just running around outside because
that's what you do in the South.
That's what you do in the South.
Yeah.
And I didn't
run around barefoot.
Yeah. Parents fought some yelling. So I was just like, I'm going to go outside and play with my friend kids. And older brother, not the one in the wheelchair, he kind of liked my little brother more than me. So he would go and like hang out with him.
Sure.
And I'd be the one that's just kind of playing, do my own thing.
Sure.
And then other brother in a wheelchair, he's watching movies, playing video games and stuff like that. And we would play, and there's some good times, but just as general, I was kind of the odd man out a lot of the times.
Do you ever feel like you were the black sheep?
Yeah, I feel like sometimes. I feel like our whole family is the black sheep sometimes.
Yeah, dude, that's funny because I was just going to say, like, in my family, like, it depends on what the topic is. Someone different is the black sheep. Like, nowadays, my youngest sister has the same humor as us, and, like, we joke about the same stuff, but, like, back in the day, like, that wasn't the case, and it was, like, she was the odd one out when it came to humor. But then, like, you look at one of my brothers, like, he moves very impulsively, and he's getting better now, but, like, when it comes to, like, that, like he was, or, like, it just kind of depends on what the topic is, who's the black sheep in the moment, and, like,
so I feel like I've kind of rambled a little bit. Life has a lot of things going on in it, so I'm just going to follow a specific thread, and we can get into more details later if you have any questions or anything. So when I was 7, it was kind of before 7 and after 7 with my family from my age. Like before 7, I think things are pretty generally good. Just playing outside, doing whatever. Having fun being a kid. 7, oldest brother gets really sick.
That's the one with CP?
Yes, the one with CP, one in the wheelchair. From my perspective, it was just suddenly he changed. He stopped talking to anyone. He stopped eating. Very lethargic. Totally different kid.
Was this before or after he was able to, like, assisted walk?
He from like 4 or 5 years old, he had a little walker. So he could, he could get along. He only used the walker inside.
Gotcha. So he got sick. He stopped talking to people.
Yeah. But it was kind of like a mental illness, not necessarily like a physical ailment. This is where there's different views growing up view and then like hearing stuff later. So when I grew up, I found out that we went to a home church. I didn't find that out. I knew that we were going to home church. Okay. But I found out at the home church, the pastor, my oldest brother really, really respected him as a man. He was like a role model.
Sure.
He had a yard sale, and my other older brother bought his laptop. One day, my brother goes to my dad's like, "Hey, Dad, you got to come in and look what I found on this laptop."
Oh.
Child porn.
Sure. Okay.
And oldest brother overheard this conversation, shattered him.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it would.
So role model, find out he is into that stuff.
Yeah.
And shuts down completely. We stopped going, obviously. I didn't know that. I just knew like my older brother, something's going on with him. Then he, over the course of 7 years, he was in and out of the hospital, I think 8 times. Okay. I was homeschooled. So I think, how old are you? What grade are you in when you were 7? Like third grade? Second grade?
Yeah.
I basically didn't do that year. That was like when Matthew went to school Matthew went to the hospital. Things were very hectic, and my mom was like, "Wesley, you've got like 3 months of school. It's fine, whatever." I remember dancing in the hospital, like, "Yeah, no school."
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting in the midst of that. So from 7 to 14, I remember mostly being in the hospital waiting on my brother. And growing up now, I've heard that it got to the point where at the hospital they said, if you don't take your son home, we're going to just take him to like a homeless shelter.
Oh, wow.
Because he's been here too long. This is his 8th visit here in this time span. Like he's not getting better. You need to take him.
I see.
So it'd go from him living in the hospital to him living at home, and he had lost his mind. Yeah. So it was a lot of screaming, a lot of self-harm. There was one point I remember hearing I was upstairs in my room and I hear a weird noise, kind of like a scuffling. I go downstairs and I open the room, like the family room that has the computer in it. My little brother is in the computer chair. My brother in the wheelchair is over the wheelchair, like strangling him. And I hear my brother like kicking. So I ran and I pushed him apart and I grabbed my little brother. My brother in the wheelchair pulled out a knife that he had in his wheelchair. Dang. So I grabbed the home phone, called my mom. Me and my brother went outside. And yeah, my brother has not necessarily recovered from that. He's never fully recovered. My oldest brother. Oh, your old, okay. Gotcha. In the wheelchair. He's never really recovered from his breakdown.
Sure.
I believe they called it, what did they call it? It was some technical term. I'll probably think of it randomly.
Sure.
Delirium, I believe, was the term I would hear all the time.
Delirium?
Yeah, that I would hear all the time growing up.
Yeah.
So yeah, going from in hospital rooms, my brother being doped out and non-responsive, at home screaming, him telling me that he is possessed. He would say which demons are possessing him. Scratching himself all the time. He lost control of bodily functions. He had to be changed in adult diapers, all that kind of stuff. Lost all function and reason. Dang. Ended up living in a nursing home, like the only young person under 30 when there's a bunch of 70-year-old people in a nursing home. So I remember going to visit him a lot there. And now things are better. He's not doped up. Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot to get into there with other it became very political as it grew up with my parents getting divorced and my dad kind of.
Yeah, what age were you when they got divorced?
About 14. 14 was when they sat us down and like, we are separating.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Before that, it was like, from 11 to 13 it was really bad. Like the discipline got really weird. Like me and my little brother arguing over Xbox. My dad walks in and is like, "What's going on?" My little brother's like, "I want to play." I'm like, "I told him I just started. Let me play a little bit. I'll let him on." My dad took the Xbox, throws it against the wall. I was like, "No, nobody's turn."
Okay. All right.
So
well,
there's a lot of not realizing we're getting the brunt of his frustration.
Sure. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah. I know like a lot of times when there's like a divorce on the horizon, you'll get a couple different responses, and that's one of the most common ones, is the frustration. But one thing I see a lot, and I think a lot of people who because divorce is like not uncommon, right? And you'll see like one parent, their disciplining comes lightens up because they want to be favored by their kids, and so in that situation, like your dad, like in that situation, another dad might like be like, well, I'll just go buy another Xbox so that you both, can play. And,
Yeah.
Like, who cares if it puts the family at like a more financial burden?
Mm.
Like, I want to be the favorite, and it's kind of slummy that, that's how divorce ends up going. I didn't really experience that because both my parents were like, crazy at the point. They were trying to evade. Well, at least my dad was trying to evade, responsibility. So,
yeah, and kind of going back to my story, I guess I'm gonna do a little disclaimer because I don't know. I'm not gonna send this to my parents, but if they listen to this, if you didn't want me to talk about growing up, you should have raised your kids different.
Right, exactly.
So
yeah,
I'm gonna tell it like it is.
I'm pretty sure my parents don't even know what a podcast is.
That's
so
good.
I'm probably safe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm even more sure of that with my grandmother. But if she does hear it, better.
So even with me telling the story, I felt myself hesitating to say things that would make my parents seem really bad.
Yeah. But, like, for what it's worth, like, I've gotten to this point in my life where, like, I don't condone any of my parents' behavior. I'm not letting off the hook, per se. I guess I am kind of letting them off the hook because it's like, I know what it's like to be an adult right now, and I don't have kids. And sometimes it is stressful.
Yeah.
If I had a kid, I'd probably snap too. Maybe it's just in the genes or something, but I just, like, I had to get, like, to a point where, like, I have a lot of grace for my parents. It's like, dude, it was another time, and they were just in a really hard spot. And again, like, and this is something you can relate with, like, parents that had to, had multiple kids and one that has special needs. Like, I know there's a lot of people out here who be like, no, that doesn't matter. Like, you do the best for your kids, and you, like, whatever. It's like, but that's a cool sentiment, but, like, doesn't always work out that way.
Well, I am at a different part in my life than I was about 5 years ago, even like 3 years ago, with how I view growing up.
Yeah.
Because, you only have your experience growing up.
Right.
So I've told my story to one of my best friends, and he was like, Wesley, why aren't you on drugs? You should be addicted to meth.
Yeah.
Like, if I had to do if I went through half that bullshit, I don't think I'd be the same person.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Dad, if you're listening to any of this, talk to me.
Yeah.
So the growing up, being late teenager, finishing up high school, had a lot of anger at my father.
Yeah.
And I remember he picked me up one day. We were driving down the road, and I just tried to tell him. I didn't even try to blame him. And I just tried to tell him, during all the divorce, during, different parts of growing up, just wanted to tell him how I felt, things that he did made me feel. Because one thing about my dad, he has tapes in his head. Okay. So it's, he always says the same thing over and over, verbatim, even to where, if he's saying one of his tapes, I could mouth along the words that he's going to say.
Yeah.
And there's times where a whole hour that we're together, I'm only hearing things that he always says.
Yeah. And you're like, why am I in this conversation? You don't need me.
Yeah. In many ways, there's been times where we're, seeing each other a lot, but we have no relationship.
Okay. Yeah.
But from his perspective, he would always go like, son, I'm glad that we have this relationship. And I'm like, you are talking like a robot. And it's weird.
Yeah. I can't fathom that with my father.
Oh, dude, there are some weird times.
Yeah. So,
but I trying to tell him, this is how I'm feeling, and he keep cutting me off. Be like, I was just depressed growing up, or if any father had their kid, have a breakdown like I had mine, and nobody could have done as good as I did.
Yeah.
I did the damnedest job I could have done, and just not hearing me.
Okay.
Not willing to listen to. Not even I wasn't even trying to blame him. I wasn't casting any stones. I just wanted him to see me.
Yeah.
And he wasn't willing to do that. And he's never apologized for certain things that he did for me, to me or to the family growing up. And this is where things are starting to progress a little bit. About 2 months ago, he randomly texted me, "I'm sorry for things."
That's big.
Didn't tell me what. Didn't tell me what he was sorry for. But it's like the first time I think he said sorry.
Dude, like it's like So that like at that point, it's like I'll take it.
It was like 2 a.m. just randomly.
I don't care what time.
And there's a time he's back in Tennessee, so it was like 4 a.m. for him.
Dude, random texts from dads, man. Like I remember.
Maybe I should have called him like right then, but I didn't. I saw it and I was like really tired. Like, what the heck is this?
I think I've told you this story before, but I'll tell our listeners. So my dad for, well into my mid-20s, would text me happy birthday 2 days late, 3 days early. Like, he was just never getting it right. And I think it was like 2019. Yeah, 2019, my dad texted me a happy birthday, and he texted me on my birthday, the right day, but he spelled my name wrong.
So close. Yeah, so that is briefly our stories.
Those are our stories, yeah. So I kind of shared how, like, my sister moving me out to Washington was, like, the big first step in kind of helping me up. Like, for you, what would you say was, like, the big first step?
That's strange question.
Well, you're married now.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that was, like, the first step of, like, recovery.
Yeah, so you got to some point.
Yeah, well, it's, I don't know. We're both Christians. I feel like part of it was just God protected me in certain ways.
Sure.
Like me telling my friend, all the stuff that happened to me, and him being like, "Why aren't you way worse off? Why aren't you struggling with certain things?" It was just, I think God protected me.
Mm-hmm.
So like even I remember, being on like my third job, and like I broke down in the bathroom one day crying, like, okay, how do I love my dad? Like, what does love look like between me and my dad? Because there's not a relationship. There's, anytime I try to talk to him, I get self-pity and him justifying certain things when I just want him to hear me. And I determined that the best way I could love him was just get away from him. Because me being near him hurts.
Right.
And it's not good for him, not good for me. Because if he loves me, he doesn't want to hurt me. But he's not listening to me to see that he is hurting me.
So would you say, like, faith was probably, like, the biggest, contributing factor of, like, you kind of coming to a spot of healing?
Yeah. And it was...
Like, just faith overlapping. There's, like, obviously certain relationships and things like that. Yeah, I mean, that was a big thing for me. But, like I said, like, the first thing was, like, my sister. And... her and her family, they're, very faith-based Christians.
It's kind of the similar answer when people are like, so what was, I'm going to go with Southern accent here. What was your conversion moment? When did you meet Jesus?
Dude, I was just listening to an awesome sermon about conversion. Anyway, you were saying.
So yeah, like when did you meet Jesus moment, growing up in a Christian home, you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe when I was like 4 and this lady was like, if you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to hell. And I was like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, the bad news gospel.
Yeah, I remember being at the house church I talked about earlier, and one of the Sunday school ladies was like, if you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to hell, and it's real bad there. And I was like, Jesus? Whatever I got to do, don't let that happen. So I'm like, is that it? I don't know. Growing up, you kind of swim in Christianity.
Passport to heaven right there, yeah.
In a Protestant Christian home.
Dude, I had a similar. I was atheist when I moved out into my sister's home, and her family was Christian. But the thing that kind of like pushed me away from Christianity is I think I was like 6, and I was in like a Sunday school class, and I don't think it was a Sunday school teacher. It was a man. I think he was just coming in for like some supply or something. Because I remember there was a female teacher, but I remember asking my teacher, if God's real, then why does my life suck? Why are my parents not around or something like that? I don't remember what I said, word for word. But this guy, I don't know if he was like a pastor or whatever he was, he like grabbed me on my shoulders, turned me to face him, and he slapped me, across the face. And I will never forget how bad it like stung, And he was like, you don't question things like that. God is good and something. I don't even remember what he said, but I was like, F this. Like, no. I don't like. I'm out.
Have you ever heard that famous quote by Thomas Jefferson? He's writing a letter to his like nephew or something, and he told him like he was talking about like scientific inquiry, but he's like, don't be afraid to question anything, even God. He said like if God's real, then you can question him and it'll be fine. If our faith is true. Yeah,
no, I like and that's honestly the like what I should have been hearing at that age, but instead I got a slap across the right side of my face and. So I was like, I was just completely against religion. And I think that's, people go through stuff like that's why they don't, buy into religion or Christianity.
They have bad
It's
experiences.
unfortunate. Yeah. A lot of people are like, they reject Christianity because of the bad news gospel. Like, if you don't do this, you're going to hell. But it's like, the reality is there's more of a good news, like, have you heard the good news? It's like,
and I'm not getting into a little bit of theology here. This is something I read about maybe 6 months ago. The fire of hell is the same fire of Pentecost.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway, talk about it.
Going back. So my what Jesus moment, for, like, you're talking about, like, what moment, like,
what was
pulled me out
moment, boy?
What was my turning point moment for, all moving on as a human being after having a messed up family upbringing? I mean, I feel like the biggest one is just moving out.
Yeah.
It's one of those, like,
distancing yourself from the toxicity. I said the word right.
Toxicity?
Yeah. Getting away from it. Like jujitsu, creating the distance, like managing the space.
Like, even with that's why I said, like, faith, I think, protected me from a lot of going down certain paths or creating addictions or things that would hold me back where I'd have to overcome.
Yeah.
Because I went through a lot of stuff, but I didn't have to overcome, like, alcoholism or anything like that. And it's because of those certain moments, like breaking down the bathroom of my work and deciding I'm going to avoid my dad.
Yeah.
Not create situations where he can hurt me, so I don't have those hurts to go fill something to, fill that void. Or even if I had that void, I can go to Christ.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think in the upcoming podcast, we'll have, like, the opportunity to talk about some of those experiences. And by the way, this is not a, sorry, I feel like I'm, like, half in.
Yeah, you're a little
This
bit
is,
out.
can you hear me fine here?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, go. This podcast isn't going to be solely surrounding faith. There's, people who find their own personal healing through faith, but also not through faith. And we're not unwelcome to any of that. If you got a story and you want to share it, like, come on, like, let's talk about it. Like, because I'm always interested in it.
But we are both Christian men, so that is our perspective we have to give.
Yeah, that is. And, that is our collective experience. What did you say? Perspective. I come from a perspective where, like, for a decade I rejected Christ, and I found my way. And so, like, I totally understand when I see, like, Christianese culture, and I'm like, and I think you see it too. Like, it makes you cringe. You're like, like, don't say that, like, but some people are just trying to be bold, so it's whatever. You got to give people grace. So, dude, what have we been talking, like, almost an hour now?
Yeah. And I know that, sorry for the audio listeners, I had to move a little bit, so I know my audio probably sounds a little bit different because I'm a different angle from the mic. But it's been about an hour. Thank you guys for listening. I know we talked a little bit about what we want to do and accomplish with this podcast.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about ourselves.
We were aiming for 30 minutes.
We were aiming for 25 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, 25 to 30 minutes. Yeah.
But this is fine. And
this is fine.
Is there anything else you want to leave with?
Yeah, I guess I just want to say, for anyone who's, like, kind of confused about the podcast theme, again, this is the 2-7 podcast. 2-7 is the worst hand you can start with in poker, but it is not my belief that Wesley or I were dealt. I gotta get the Pokemon card in there. Sandshrew. No, it's not my belief that Wesley or I had the 2-7 upbringing.
No,
and maybe this is a quest to find someone who did. That'd be really sad, though.
It's also like I said, like, earlier, there's so many things in life. Even when you talk, like, if somebody. I remember when I worked in a summer camp for 3 months in North Carolina.
Whitewater rafting?
Whitewater rafting.
Oh, okay.
I lived on the river.
Nice.
But I remember coming back and people were like, so how was your summer? And I'm like, there was a crap ton of stuff that happened in 3 months. Like, what do you want me to talk about? Like, do you have a couple hours to talk about it, or do you mean to go, it was good?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, that's what people want. They just, they don't want to hear the whole story.
It was usually a nicety.
Yeah.
That's why you got to pick out those threads.
Right, exactly.
So it's almost like if there's, I don't know, let's say 1,000 threads in life. Like, we talked about faith, we talked about health, we talked about disability.
They want to hear about the coolest thing.
Yeah, so
that's the thread they want. Is like, what's the coolest thread?
If each thread is a card in your hand, maybe you got some good threads, some bad cards. It's a mixture.
Yeah. So like I said, it's not my belief that you or I had the 2-7
No.
upbringing. But it's still kind of the emphasis of this podcast. And I want to emphasize, like, if you got a story you want to come on to the show, and just kind of share your experience where you're at in life, and message us. We'll have our social media.
Yeah, leave a comment.
Yeah, leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And I'm building a list right now of people I want to interview and talk to. Even if you didn't have rough upbringing, maybe you work in social services, or you've seen like rough upbringings, and you have like a perspective, the other side of the lake, as I would say. Come on, let's hear it. And
because I think two of the not the only two, but two of the things that this podcast is trying to do is give people hope.
Yeah,
give people perspective. Like, you're not the only one that's had a crap time.
You're not special.
No, you're not special in that your life is horrible.
Right.
And then also, hope to give people skills or philosophies, or maybe even things to say in certain situations. Like if you have a bad time growing up with your dad, like I did, maybe you do need that space between you. Maybe you can't get that right now if you're a younger person. Maybe like Shaun, you have your sister be a guardian angel that suddenly takes you out of a terrible situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes you gotta just wait.
Yeah.
Some situations you just have to wait till you're 18.
Yeah, and that's one thing I talk about. Like, I was talking to somebody recently about like the concept of the 2-7 podcast. Like, sometimes the hand you're dealt, the 2-7, it's a season, and sometimes you just gotta fold and wait for the next hand and put your money in that one. I know so many young athletes, a lot of talent, they're stuck in a toxic home. It's like, if you can just somehow find a way to not lose your cool, to not find yourself in cuffs and in juvenile detention, you wait till you're in adulthood, you can manifest those talents. But it's a season, and it's tough.
Do what I did. Stare at your friend, throw soda cans in the air.
Throw soda cans up in the air.
Hide on a hill around a roundabout with a bunch of yogurt. Throw yogurt at trucks.
Throw yogurt at... Dude, that's causing an accident. I don't think we can tell people to do that.
But do it.
But
you'll feel great.
I like what do you call it? Soft roulette?
What?
What'd you call roulette?
Russian roulette?
Yeah, soft Russian roulette. Is that what you called it?
Yeah.
Was it like
Russian
drink?
roulette?
Oh, okay, never mind.
I mean, it was supposed to be like a less... You can get injured, but you can't die.
Right.
Roulette.
Soda can just knock you out.
Yeah, you could get... Yeah, the worst that could have happened was concussion.
Sure.
But what happened was it hit like one of us on the shoulder.
It's a waste of a soda, unless it's LaCroix.
Ooh. Well, it was actually a bunch of off-brand soda that we weren't going to drink anyways.
Like Big K.
And it had been
great value.
It had been in a garage for like a whole summer.
Oh, so
it was disgusting.
Bad. Yeah, you can't even drink that. Well, good. That's an hour and approaching 3 minutes. I think we're good for this podcast.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time, everybody.
Yeah. See you next time.
Bye.